Before we begin, thank you very much to Bazawonga for joining the Patreon campaign. No, I didn't repeat myself or leave in an additional take that I forgot to delete. That is what they name themselves. Hey, whatever goofy thing makes you happy for me to shout out, okay, yeah, I am more than happy to repeat. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you, everyone, for the support. It has meant the world to me. It's been incredibly important. Incredibly important. It's going to be more important here in the future. So thank you very much for everything you guys do. You guys keep me, guys, girls, and everything in between. You are keeping me doing this every single day. Thank you very much for it. So that's the normal shout out spiel. Now we get to the Patreon shout out spiel, because this was another Patreon request. And the request was kind of related to things we've done in the past. So we've talked Titans and potential Titans in the past. And the request was pointed out to me that the Decepticons are behind on Titans. Now, the list they gave me seemed to indicate more original molds than it was anything else. So, yeah, this is a few. It doesn't include, like, repaints, or I think. I don't think. In either case, they deduce that they are 2 Titans down from the Autobots. And the debate was, who evens the odds? What other Titans could come out that are Decepticon-oriented? And to be fair, the last time we talked about Titans and what potential characters could become Titans later on, we kind of strayed really close to the Autobot side of things with, like, Grandis here. So, yeah, I think it's entirely fair that we actually go over this again, and we will actually talk on the Decepticon side. Who could be a Decepticon one? Now, also excluded from this list is going to be the Combiner ones, because I think we're focused here on big cities or big spaceships. It's the characters who, in and of themselves, are gigantic and grand and have to be Titan class in order to get released. Yes, Predaking and Devastator are Titan class toys, but, you know, they're combiners. You know, it's just, they happen to be very large combiners that work in the Titan engineering structure. So, okay, we'll exclude those. We're not going to go with anything combiner-ish like Lio Kaiser or something like that. So we're going to talk about, you know, just the outliers, the ones that are potential. Now, we could even the odds with repaints. That is entirely possible. We haven't gone down that route before. Metro Titan just standing there, just staring at the original Titan toy, going like, when's my turn? To be fair, Metro Titan does not have a whole lot of fiction behind him and very little notoriety. If they were to ever have done this, even back when, when a Titan was, what was Metroplex? What, 140? Something around there? It's way cheaper than it is now. Even back then, if they had done this as a repaint, I don't think it would have gone over very well. Yes, it's bizarre and weird, but you'd be surprised how few people know Metro Titan of all characters. I mean, it's a repaint of Metroplex. I mean, about as obvious as it can get. But no, I don't think we're going this route. We're not going to go repaint route. We're also not going to go remold route either, which means Gigastorm is also out of the question. Calling him a remold, admittedly, is kind of generous. The only real addition is that horn on his head, which is really just an extension of the canopy that's always there anyway. Now, you look at Trypticon, and you look at Gigastorm side by side. There's really not a whole lot of differences. They are still using primarily purple, gray, teal as their main colors. Metro Titan, I'm still stuck on that. Gigastorm definitely gets a lot more paint here and there, a bunch more tampograph details instead of stickers, but ultimately the same toy. So while this one is a possibility, I don't think we're ever going to see it. Amusing as it would be for me. No. So we're just going to get those out of the way. Let's focus on new molds. Let's focus on what we could do as brand new molds. I'm going to repeat myself because we've already done a full video about this, but I'm going to say it every chance I get. I still think Tidal Wave needs to be Titan class. Not only because, yeah, and I brought it up in previous videos, the Decepticons really don't have many options for Titan class characters. So I think you need to work with what you got. And the big thing for me is the fact that all of Tidal Wave's best tricks and all of his best gimmicks work because of his size. When you reduce that size down into like a leader class or even like commander class in order to make Megatron's armor, you take away a lot of your tricks. You take away you take away that like that troop carrier mode where you can have like smaller toys sit down in him. You take away things like his Minicon gimmick with Ramjet with like a working elevator on the I am losing my track of my mind today. On top of the aircraft carrier. That's what you lose. And I really don't want to lose that because those are some really cool tricks. Those are some really cool gimmicks. So I think it has to be Titan class, especially if you're a fan of the Armada game. But I know there's a big argument for why he shouldn't be. Okay, it's a controversial choice, but I'm just saying, my choice. I'm going to throw in one as well just because I see it brought up so many times, and I'm getting it out of the way just because we need to acknowledge how ridiculous this thing is, and that is the giant purple griffin. I don't know why people are connected to this thing, but they are, and this comes up every time we talk about weird things in G1 that need toys. I don't know if it needs a toy or not. So this is just a one-off battleship that Megatron had in G1. No explanation as to where it came from or how he built it. No explanation for why he designed it after a griffin. It's just one of those weird, like, after-school cartoon villainy things that never really had a rhyme or reason. If anything, this should have been like a Selects retool of Skylynx, and I don't know why it never was. There's your obvious go-to, and they don't have to come up with a robot mode for it. I mean, I wouldn't say no to something that turned into this, but I'm not going to spend more than like maybe leader money for it. I mean, even if it is supposed to be big, it's a big dumb thing. I don't think you're going to get away with it as a Titan, even if it is a Decepticon ship of some kind. There is one area of Transformer that we have to acknowledge because we have a Cybertron Metroplex at Titan class, which means there's another realm that we could go to for our Titans, and that is the giants of the Unicron Trilogy. The most obvious one of that is Starscream. Now, we do have a listing for something called Cyber Starscream coming out of the Voyager scale, which is most likely going to be Cybertron Starscream in a much more diminutive size than what you see here. Now, that would probably interfere with the chance of getting it as a Titan, but if we're talking about the giants in that series, it's probably the closest one you're going to get because, yes, he is a very, very large character once he gets his big, like, mid-series power-up. So, yeah, he's probably the most likely one, if only because we have the most exposure to him being that size. He actually fits the bill. Would he sell? I honestly don't know. I feel like Cybertron Starscream is one of those that's pretty easy to find on aftermarket, so I'm not sure if there's a huge amount of demand for him. And I also don't know how you would make him viable as a $200 toy, gimmick and play value wise. I feel like they struggle with that on the Nemesis. Is it enough to just be gigantic? I'm sure Hasbro would love asking $200 for something with a Starscream name attached to it. There's other options from the era. We could talk about Galvatrons. The Energon Galvatron did the exact same thing. That gets us back into the giant purple spaceship aesthetic that we already hit with the Nemesis. So I'm not necessarily sure that's going to be a good option, but it is an option. I'm just saying, it's an option. It's a giant Decepticon that has happened. That it's not the most likely, admittedly. I will say it's more likely than the follow-up, which was Cybertron Galvatron, also going gigantic. See, the difference is the Energon Galvatron went gigantic because he was possessed by Unicron, so he goes, he gets really, really big. Whereas this Galvatron just powered himself up and made himself gigantic. There's really no other reason for it other than that. So this one this one I'm throwing in just because we have to. If I mention one Galvatron, I got to mention the other Galvatron. By the way, this didn't help him win. So you think he would, he lost when he did it himself. And Starscream lost when Starscream did it. You would think Galvatron would not go with this tactic again. Nope, he did. But they're really just trying to make old enemies threatening again by enlarging the character model so they don't have to animate a real final villain. That's really all that's going on there. Anyway, let's look at some outside inspiration, right? How about the comic books? The comic books introduced to us a brand new slew of Titan characters. And there's some villain-aligned ones that we could talk about. So we could talk about Vigilum. Now, Vigilum is technically not a Decepticon. He was aligned to Liege Maximo. But we bring him up because he's this gigantic space freighter in vehicle mode, which avoids the problem we would have with, say, Energon Galvatron, where we're just doing another purple spaceship right after doing a purple spaceship. So we kind of get away from that. And yeah, he brings a unique color scheme to the Decepticon Titans. I don't know if he's well known enough. He had some time. He had some prominence. It's definitely a direction to go if we really, really wanted to. I bring it up because I'm looking for as many options as I can. That's what I'm bringing it up. It's up there. It's up there. Also, if we want to go to somewhere completely different, how about this dude? How about Croatan from Cyberverse? He was a huge threat. I mean, very literally, he was a huge threat. He is again a more neutral but controlled by Decepticon Titan. And it's a really cool design. Again, we're bringing in unique color, unique design traits. And yeah, he is close enough to be called a Decepticon if we did a brand new toy of him. In Cyberverse, once he was defeated, he actually became the capital city on the Decepticon side of Cybertron. So yeah, he actually does have Decepticon in him. Literally, there's Decepticons living inside of him. But more than that, he could actually potentially have a city mode. So he could be like a proper Titan that has a big base for smaller figures. That's a potential. And when you're talking about something like this, it's a character that could be pre-tool for something else. If you had, say, an Autobot city in mind as a Titan at some point, this is a potential pre-tool for it. We started off as a Decepticon, we started off as Croatan, and then we repaint it into orange. We give it new designs, new head. But the city mode is always going to be based on Autobot City, regardless of which version it is. There's just minor differences between the two. That's where my brain goes. That's where my brain goes as far as like the marketing side of things. If I'm going to go this route, is a character from Cyberverse enough to sell a $200 toy? Well, if a character from Cybertron is, then who knows? It really is like possibility wise, it really is like out the window. Anything goes at this point. So who am I to guess? I'm me. That's what I do. That's why I'm making this video. We are guessing together. What about let's take the Autobot Arc approach. And no, I don't mean the Nemesis. No, I mean the Victory. So yeah, this is the ship that Megatron and the Decepticons created in the 3-part opening to the original G1 Transformers cartoon. It crashed into the ocean and became the Decepticon base. This is that thing that like the big tower emerged from, that the Seekers always flew off from. Yeah, so this is what was used as the Decepticon base for the first 2 seasons of G1. And it is very similar to the Nemesis. Let's get that straight right out of the gate. I wouldn't depict this as a toy to be the Nemesis or just be like a retool of the Nemesis. I would aim for this toy to be something closer to Omega Supreme, where all these smaller buildings would be like an outer ring that collapsed together and combined with the main ship mode in order to create the robot mode. So I'm trying to answer Omega Supreme, not copy the Nemesis when I'm talking about this, because there's a lot of details and traits that you don't really get anywhere else. I would even create a ring, like a big ring that would connect all of these units together, including the whatever takeoff or display platform the spaceship had itself. And that ring I would make double as a space bridge. Right? So instead of Omega Supreme's tracks, you have this space bridge that all these smaller units could connect onto. It all combines into one giant robot, just like Omega Supreme does. But if you just want a space bridge to pose your Decepticons with, you got one. You got one. So that's an idea in my head. Okay, and then I'm going to show you the two. If we had to boil it down to two. So I'm going to show you the two that I concluded would be my choices for doing new Decepticon Titan class. And one's not a Decepticon technically, so I'm cheating, but hey, I think it works. The first one is the Revenge. This is Galvatron's spaceship, and I love the look of this spaceship. Now, I think Siege missed a huge thing by making Shockwave a generic space cruiser when they could have made him look like this. And a third party answered that by actually making Shockwave that transforms into the Revenge, so it is possible to make it transform. It's also just another spaceship from the Decepticon fleet that hasn't been really tapped yet for an official toy, outside of Unicron's accessory pack. So, why not? You'd have to distance it out from the Nemesis. I don't think you can convince retailers to take two gigantic $200 purple spaceships in a row. So we might have to wait on that. The other one, on the other hand, kind of more obvious, but I think it's time. I think it's time. How about Unicron? So the Titan Unicron. So of course the HasLab Unicron is never going to be remade. It's probably never going to be surpassed. However, this version is the Unicron that most people grew up with as a toy because it was literally the first and only Unicron available. And to this day, it's probably the most affordable Unicron you can get officially from Hasbro that still has a good size to it. Now, old Supreme class toys are still smaller than current Titans, so a new one would be far larger than the original at $200. And yeah, and hopefully some of the gimmicks would be intact. But I feel like an alternative, seeing what that goes for on eBay now, seeing what that goes for makes me think, yeah, there's room for an alternative on the market. I think Hasbro would be good to capitalize on making another Unicron. Even if it's Armada based, it's still going to be in that realm of it's still a Unicron close enough. Especially if they could refine the design from the original and make it less egg-shaped, give it a base to stand on in planet mode, that kind of thing. No, I think this is well within the possibility. I mean, and I think Unicron is far enough out now. I think it's doable. I think enough time's passed from the HasLab to go, yeah, time to give Unicron another go. Especially if we are wrapped up in this Armada Trilogy renaissance that we're apparently having in Legacy, as well as introducing Unicron in the live-action movies to hit that nostalgia point. Yeah, I think it's ripe to actually put a new Unicron on the shelves. So there are my picks. I don't know who the Revenge would turn into. I assume a brand new character. And Unicron. Again, Unicron technically not a Decepticon, but for toy marketing purposes, close enough. So, there you go. A list of possibilities for a Decepticon Titan to even out the odds. Let me know if I missed anything in the comments below, because, to be honest, there's not a whole lot to pick from, so I hope I went through just about everything. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.
I'm I think you guys got this. I will back away, and I will see you all later.
You've got this handled.
Alaffi's really? You're not gonna help me? It's fine now.
It's these disgusting creatures breathing down my neck, and you're all just I believe in you. You got this.
All right, you seem to have this. 5 minutes.